According to the cloud. Okay. So good morning, everybody. Preeti, you're on mute.
Good morning, Anita.
Morning, Anita. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So good morning to all of you. And thank you, Akansha. Thank you, Abhyudaya. So like I was mentioning a few minutes before that, there was a time when I was like, okay, someday I'll also facilitate something. And today is that day. Super grateful and super happy to all of you for joining me this Saturday morning. On the book reflection topic, which is More Time to Think by Nancy Klein. More Time to Think is, of course, like one of those, Tom Cruise sequels or Bahubali sequels, because there is a time to think and then there is more time to think. So, yeah, so welcome to this small exploration journey. Just before I continue, how many of you have read the book at least once? Read, as in like Dil Se read. I'm not talking about skimming and, so read. Okay, Sandeep is not read. Divyani, have you read it? No, no problem. Great. Priya, hi Priya, welcome.
Hi.
Yeah.
I started reading it. I'm not able to complete it yet.
Okay, sure. No worries. Then I definitely hope that today's session helps you, get inspired to read it and continue it further. So I've just put together a small PowerPoint and, it's a reflection, right? So while I will share what the book contains, I will, of course, make it a little bit about what has it spoken to me. The premise of Nancy's book is how much are you willing to make another person your thinking partner, right? So I would be disrespecting her if I don't invite your thoughts at each and every juncture. And I sincerely hope that, I thank you in advance for supporting and helping us together achieve that thinking partnership. Of course, feel free to ask questions. I'm not here with any pressure to, do justice to Nancy's work, because I truly believe that the book has to be read multiple times. It's almost like a textbook, because the first time when I read it, I'll be honest, my feeling was somebody has actually written 600 pages between two books on a single topic, which is thinking. Not only that, the beauty of the topic is, although we could be discussing in the context of coaching, I feel like the beauty of the book is it just overall talks about enhancing the quality of our interaction, whether it is in a normal conversation, whether it is in an official meeting or a coaching conversation. So that's the premise. If you guys are excited to go ahead, can I see a thumbs up on the screen? Let's use some emoticons. Let's have some energy. Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, like I said, I'm just going to open my PowerPoint, and so there's a bit of a visual element to it. Is everybody able to see me and hear me clearly? Okay, great. So yeah, Nancy Klein's More Time to Think. Of course, I'll start with the premise as to why should you listen to me at all. Really, India is a democratic country, no compulsion. But yeah, I have about 23 years of experience. My name is Anita Rao Jaikumar. I manage 3 businesses. Academically, I'm an architect. So I run a design studio with my husband, which is called Miraki Eco Design. I'm also a certified financial planner. My corporate experience did have a great BFSI backing. So I have co-founded with my brother this company called Money Stream. And of course, my bread and butter, which is the Mindstream. So Moneystream is into investment, insurance, and loans. Mindstream is into training, coaching, and consulting. Miraki Eco Design is into design, build, consulting, and landscaping. Forget about the businesses, but why it is very relevant to the topic we are discussing is that I have gained a lot whenever I have allowed the client to think, and I have lost a lot when I have not been able to grasp the client's thinking. And I'm not even joking, guys, because sometimes like we have had to literally pull down lakhs worth of construction simply because we had not paid attention to the client's thinking or the way he or she was trying to express their thought. And we have got crores worth of reference when, say, a client has been very happy that we have been able to support their thinking into reality. So my humble submission is that whether it doesn't matter what work we do, but I think the more we are able to support people in their journey of thinking, I feel that more all of us can be successful. So as of now, any thoughts in what do you think about thinking? Anything you would like to share? Any initial thoughts? What is your experience with thinking? What is your experience with allowing people to think or not having been allowed people to think? Any initial thoughts? Come on. I don't think I'm looking that scary. No thoughts right now? Cool. Let me just admit somebody. Somebody's trying to attend the room. Okay. Is my screen frozen? Okay, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, just because somebody was trying to come in, I temporarily lost. So yeah, so let me just start off with the book in that case. Now that the introduction is out of the way. Okay, so those of you who have read the book, I think the introduction or the part 1 of the book deals with what Nancy refers to as the 10 components of thinking environment. Okay, so while I'll talk about it a little bit, can I invite you to just look at these 10 components? The 10 components are attention, incisive questions, equality, appreciation, ease, encouragement, feelings, information, place, and diversity. Now, just going by the English words, is there any connection you're able to make to thinking? Is there any initial thought? Hey Mahi, hi. Thank you for joining in.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
So Mahi, I was just asking everybody after showing the 10 components of the thinking environment that happen, just going by the English meaning of these words, is there any initial thought that is coming to your mind with regards to thinking? Or
No
those
initial thought as such,
okay.
because if just one thought which comes to me when I look at these words,
Uh-huh.
so I would say they are very beautifully interwoven to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And without one, the other cannot happen.
Okay. Okay. Great. Yes, you are right. Indeed, it's like a piece of a puzzle. So each of it contributes to the best thinking partnership that we can probably provide to our coaching clients. So just to give, what did Nancy have in mind when she spoke about these 10 components? What I've done is I've taken the liberty to crunch what these words mean in her language. And then I'll just talk a little bit about how has it shaped my coaching experiences. And I would really love for you to also share what comes up for you. So moving on, like what is attention for Nancy, right? Now, attention is listening with deep respect, interest, and fascination. I must say this, I'm still in this journey. I'm still picking up things. All these words look very simple. All these tasks seem very simple and doable. Yet many times when I listen to my recordings again, I have felt myself missing out, like literally within the first 10 minutes, where I would have missed out on one of these or more than one of these. So yeah, what did Nancy have in mind when you look at these 10 components? So Sandeep, especially for you, in case you've not yet had the chance to read the book, so that whole thinking environment that Nancy talks about comprises of these 10 elements, where attention is all about, am I listening to you with enough respect, interest, and fascination? So you can imagine if all of us who are in the coaching journey, if we are also trying to link it to the competencies, whether it's MCC competency, PCC, ACC, doesn't matter. I keep trying to link it to PCC because I'm on the journey right now. But like attention for me speaks very beautifully to the coaching presence competency. Am I listening to the client? Am I listening to the coachee with sufficient respect, interest, and fascination? Because it requires like my mind to be completely blank as a coach. Incisive question, well, to simply put, it is actually asking a question where I'm removing the unhealthy assumption of the client. However, I have purposely singled it out because it really will help us build our skills as a coach. So we'll talk more about incisive question a little later, because I'm very sure, especially if you have not read the book, incisive question is a slightly novel factor, which I think does a lot for our questioning skills as a coach. Equality, something really where I, again, tend to falter. Literally, it is a matter of 10 days back. And there was this coachee who brought up a, situation where they said, I hate when coaches, trainers, facilitators, they buy awards, they pay money to get published in magazines ABC. And immediately my thinking in my mind, and I think almost conveyed that in some way, is that, okay, what's your problem? Why are you thinking like that? If you are not okay with it, you're not okay with it. But the minute I have thought like that, the minute I have, felt like that, the minute I have conveyed that, I have actually stopped considering the coachee as an equal. They have a right to think the way they want to. They have a right to believe what they want to. They have a right to think, feel, say what they want to. It's none of my business to interfere. So yes, in very different coaching conversations, I keep, or sometimes when I'm rushing to think that, arey, it's such a small thing, why is the person not getting it? There also I realize that I'm missing out on the equality, because equality is all about looking at my client, looking at my subordinate, looking at my manager, looking at my spouse, sibling, friend, in a manner that I treat them as equal, which means I trust them to do their thing completely. So that's equality for me. Appreciation. This is a simple one. I think, I don't know about coaching conversations, but I would definitely say my personal relationships and my marriage have also improved thanks to this appreciation aspect. Why? Because in appreciation, Nancy Klein talks about the ratio of criticism to praise. And she says that for every 5 times you praise, you can criticize probably once, if at all, right? And I think that makes sense a lot, because the more we are able to appreciate, the more, people get encouraged to do things, rather than vice versa, where we make them experience unhealthy emotions like criticism, guilt, or shame. Ease. I've written the word chill because that's exactly what Nancy says. Remove the urgency, remove the hurry. Don't try to make everything a race against time, because, like, in Hindi there's a word called hadbad, right? So hadbadi mein nothing concrete really gets done. So actually, when Nancy talks about introducing ease in the thinking space, she actually says, calm down, let the client go through whatever it is that they are going through. Don't be in a hurry to move them in a certain direction. You don't definitely be in a hurry to move in a certain direction. So that's what is all about. Made perfect sense to me. So now that we are halfway through the components of thinking environment, how are we doing, guys? Is that making sense? Any thoughts as of now? Any questions? Yeah. Okay. Priya, are you with me? Sandeep, are you with me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. You've raised your hand, Sandeep. Did you want to ask something?
Yes.
Sure.
So, Anita, I would really like to understand what the author is trying to communicate between these two books separately in Time to Think, and what additionally is she trying to communicate in More Time to Think. If you can just focus that, that will really help me.
Coming up immediately. That's what the next couple of slides are. So because this premise, see, again, incidentally, in the 290 odd pages, a good 120 pages have been rededicated to, these 10 components itself. except that she builds on it with a few more aspects. Okay, so while the first book is only about this, the second book actually is about this and it is about something else. So thank you for asking that. Very soon coming up. Okay, so then of course we move on to feelings, which is about emotional release. Let the client go through his emotions, feelings. Many times we feel like as coaches we have to be some magicians, whereas maybe the client just having a good cry, good venting, good sharing, just a good, impartial, non-judgmental listening is a powerful enough release for them to take their journey forward, right? So it's not about us, it's about them always. Then, of course, information. Like many times for clients to also work through, because they are in an emotional flux when they generally approach a coach, or when, let's say, they are going through something, the idea is to help them declutter so that they take into account all the information relevant. Then, of course, the last two components, physical place. The place, when Nancy Klein refers to the place, she actually talks about the physical space. You know, one change that I have done because of that is I really don't anymore take calls which are on the go. In the sense, let's say the client sometimes is in a very, they really want to talk, but they're in the middle of a traffic, they're driving, and they're like, Anita, I really want to talk to you about this. Earlier, I would actually say yes. But now I do take that 1 minute to ask them, hey, it looks like you're in the middle of something, or you're traveling, or are you like in a proper place? Are you in a position where you can talk to me like calmly? If yes, I'm more than happy to talk. Otherwise, why don't we block time at the earliest and then can we talk? Or if I'm meeting a physical space, if I'm meeting, then also I decide accordingly. So because the place also plays a very important role. I think, if all of you have looked at Western movies and all, you'll see that generally the psychiatrist's office, or that there's a very typical space that is generally created, because yes, that does aid in the thinking process of the client. Last but not the least, diversity talks about celebrating differences. All of us can look at it different ways. The way I look at it, is your worldview interfering with the client's worldview? Are your experiences coming in the way? Is your thinking interfering with the client's thinking? Is your past, similar event influencing the way you are looking at the client's responses? Shouldn't. Like, can it not? So can I just be happy celebrating the diversity, or in other words, the differences? Yes, Mahi, you want to say something?
So, Anita, I would just like to share, but it's not about the typical conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, for my corporate clients, so there are some check-in calls which happens post. It's part of their IDP. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, in spite of they telling in the telling mode, I ask them, ask the things in a coaching prospect. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and either I'm giving a feedback post assessment center, or even doing the check-in calls. It's very interesting aspect of it. uh, you know there would be certain times when the people would be in a surrounding which is very I would say with a lot of people around. Okay?
Right.
Maybe they are at a cubicle or something.
Mm-hmm.
Then, for some time, the conversation, even I asked them that, hey, can you move to a place which is like, you can be feasibly you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they would be at times, they said, no, I'm okay, I'm able to manage this. Okay.
Mm.
And after maybe 5, 7 minutes, they would just give us a pause, say, give me a 5 minutes break. I think I need to move into more quieter place.
Okay. Right.
Okay. So,
Right.
because at times, uh, for certain people, it really varies. Okay. For
Mm.
some, it's okay, they can manage in little noisy areas. For certain people, it requires, because when you ask certain questions, that triggers their thinking.
Right.
And then,
Right.
to respond to those answers, to think through, they require that space
Correct.
to
Correct.
think through.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's why I wanted to reflect. For some, it does not impact. For some, it is really, really crucial to have that silent thinking space. So it varies from person to person.
True that, and absolutely agreed. And which is why I, kind of started by saying that it's always the client's call. But then can I check so that if they are okay or if they would prefer to do it in a slightly more relaxed environment, I feel like I'm using this element of place to both our advantage, especially to the client's advantage. But like you said, someone comfortable with the chaos and they're more prioritizing dealing with the issue then and there, absolutely their call. Or they feel after some time that no, this is not really working. They need that mind space. So thanks, Mahi, for letting us know that practically.
Also, Anita,
Hmm.
Anita, I would so sorry, I'm taking a little longer here.
Sure.
In fact, when I'm also reading this particular book, I would highly recommend for coaches to read this book because it tells a lot about you as a coach and also what kind of space you can create for your coaching. Okay. And even, the book is such that, I need that thinking space. Moment I read a line, I go into my own thoughts. Okay, what it really means. So the book itself has a power to impact the thinking pattern of a reader.
True that. True that. So we get an additional vote of recommendation from Mahi for the book. So if I'm not able to convince, then you have another vote in the book's favor. So yes, thank you for sharing what you did, Mahi. Moving on, I think especially Sandeep, this could be of interest to you because one thing that is different between the first book and this book is that, there is this, uh, we do focus quite a bit in the initial part of the conversation where we're trying to find out what is the coach's outcome from the session, right? So this is where, and personally, I found it very useful. This is where Nancy actually breaks down that overarching outcome for us to literally define what is the further goal. I mean, the words that she uses is a further goal. So while the client has a session outcome, what is the further goal that the client wants to take away in that session? Now that, interestingly, are all these types. And, I've taken an example in the next slide so that it becomes a little more clearer. But it is fascinating how for the same session outcome, there are different kinds of further goals that the client could be coming up with. Now, what are those goals? So I have just enlisted it. These are what Nancy also enlists. So there is the action goal, the feeling goal, the removing the blocks goal, understanding why I goal, looking at assumptions, exploring a new topic, activity goal, information goal. For me, this was a eureka moment. The reason being, for me, most of the way I used to drive the conversation would be either action or activity oriented. So this is what is your outcome. So, okay, you want to know what to do about it. You want to know how to go about it. So that would very subconsciously or unknowingly, that used to be my focus. Whereas that's where Nancy says, no, try and take a departure and try and see what is it that the client really, really wants to take out of the session or the conversation. So I've given some examples. One of the most popular topics, pardon me if I'm generalizing, is, let's say, procrastination. Okay. So if, let's say, procrastination is the outcome that the client has in mind, I want to deal with procrastination. And so I want you to really appreciate the distinction between how each of the goal would be articulated. And mind you, firstly, Nancy says, encourage the client to articulate as much as possible so that then the client actually can select that what is their Achilles heel, what is their dukti rat, because an action goal of procrastination looks very different than a looking at assumptions goal. And honestly, if all of you are still doing coaching sessions regularly, you can probably guess that each of this will take the conversation in a very different direction. Some are slightly superficial level. Superficial may not be the right word, but some are slightly surface level, whereas some are slightly deeper things to deal with. In fact, personally, since I struggle with procrastination, it also helped me dig deeper into, okay, what's my actual issue with procrastination? Because action further goal will mean I want to set a plan to avoid procrastination. Whereas a feeling goal will be, hey, when I procrastinate, I feel bad. I feel horrible. I feel like I'm not living up to my full potential. And I don't want to feel that way. It's a feeling goal. I want to feel something else. Removing the block goal, I want to know what's coming in the way. What's stopping me from living up to my potential. Understanding why for the life of me, I know I shouldn't be Netflixing. But why is it that I'm clicking that next episode? Although I know that I have something else that I need to work on, a marketing collateral to look at or something else. Looking at assumptions goal, I want to get to the root of the matter. What am I assuming here because of which I tend to keep procrastinating? Like my assumption, for example, is looking at assumptions is if I can't churn out a perfect work, I don't want to churn it. Now, is the client looking at a timely, decent work, or is the client looking at a rocket scientist level perfection work? Right? Exploring a new topic. I have tried it with 25 coaches and I have tried it for, let us say, 5 years. Nothing is happening with my procrastination. So if procrastination is not going to go away, or why am I trying to work on procrastination in the first place? To maybe be productive, more successful. So if procrastination is taken out of the window, how else can I increase my performance? So that would be an example of exploring a new topic. Activity goal would be straightforward. I want to know what steps can I take to deal with procrastination, which by the way used to be what I default would go to. Acha, so if you find out 3 ways to deal with procrastination, would you feel that your session objective has been met? And to me, that would be doing a great first 15-minute gathering requirement of the client or gathering expectation of the client competency. Last, of course, information. I want to know what's coming in the way, but I want to know more about what really happens with regards to procrastination. So I hope I have not overwhelmed you, but now that you have had a chance to look at these different types of goals, what do you think? Do they make sense? Any thoughts on that? Anybody would like to share? Sandeep, how is this landing on you, if I may ask? Anybody can answer, of course.
Yeah. So Anita, I was thinking that is there a difference between uh, clarifying or knowing the goal, which I would try to call as a SMART goal?
Mm-hmm.
How would that be different from what you have put on slide?
So Sandeep has asked a very interesting question. So, there is this whole popular concept of SMART goal, and I use SMART as one of the ways to clarify with the client. So is that different from what we are talking, or rather what Nancy talks about in her book? So before I share my thoughts, does anybody else have a view on it? No? Come on, risk it, guys. Think. Would you like to try, Preeti? Is SMART different than what Nancy talks about?
Honestly, I was not thinking about the SMART goals at all right now. So my mind was somewhere else. My thinking pattern was somewhere else. This is such a common topic of procrastination. And this is an example. And most of the time, action is the superficial thing which people come with. Action goal. Because that's the coach's job comes when we take them deeper with the feeling and the blocks. And the more and more we become attentive, ask incisive questions, go through their feelings, knock on the door, that think about how are you feeling about it. Then the whole circle completes. They go deeper. It's more about their identity, behaviors, the environment and whatnot. So it's a beautiful thing to just see them, peeling layer by layer, going deeper. Action is just on the top layer. I was just recalling few of the coaching sessions, and then this was making so much of sense. And this can be possible only with the time, the patience, giving them to think and come up with answers one after another. So my thoughts were there. I was not at all thinking about SMART goals.
That's perfectly all right. And thank you for sharing that, Preeti. Sandeep, let me ask you a counter question. Do you think SMART will address the belief behind the goal?
SMART will not necessarily address the belief, but the question of where I was coming from is that once there is a clarity in the mind of the coachee, when the goal is a smarter goal, then the probing or the inquiry can be made from the coach's end to discover or help the coachee discover these aspects.
Okay. Okay. Fair
So
enough.
unless the clarity is in the mind of the coachee that what he or she wants to get out of the session, any of these explorations, inquiries, I mean, the coach may not be heading in the right direction.
Okay. Can I invite you to flip the coin, or can I challenge your perspective?
Sure.
So, if I'm guessing, of course, here, but if I have understood Nancy at all, then this point she would probably ask you the question, what assumption are you making about the client, which is telling you that clarity is only what they are looking at? So, Sandeep, it's so interesting because SMART prima facie, if you look at it and the way the model is, it's a lot about information and action. Okay. So yes, if you feel that the client is going to get supported by just that. See, because I do believe, many times very unwittingly, and maybe because we function that way, we feel that if there is clarity, and we'll do it. But many times we have the clarity, Baba. If I want to reduce weight, I mean, I'm very sure all of us are clear. Please exercise, please manage your diet, please be observant about your, general lifestyle, about your, say, unhealthy habits with regards to, losing weight. So we know that information is already there. So and the client, by the way, can very easily articulate this. Except that as a coach, why this further goal helps me is, rather than accepting them at that level, can I say, how else do you think you would like to lose weight? What are some other things you can share about losing weight? So that, we can get to deeper and deeper levels. Like if it's losing weight, then the action goal is, I want to know how to go about moving from 75 kgs to 60 kgs. That's an action goal. Feeling goal is, I feel pathetic because of my current weight, but I want to feel like I'm, Angelina Jolie. Very different direction. Because while the first one was about steps, the second one becomes about self-image. So then the line of questioning totally changes. So who do you look at yourself? What assumption are you making about yourself? What's your self-image about yourself? And similarly, okay, so since you seem to know somewhere down the line, since you seem to know that these are the ways to lose weight, how else do you want to look at this? No, but when I see that plate of samosa, I just can't help it. Removing the blocks or understanding why. So why are you attracted to that plate of samosa? So Sandeep, 100% with you that exploration and clarity is 100% necessary. Except that I'm also inviting you on behalf of Nancy that this is in fact the detailed exploration, where I just keep on asking how else, what else, just so that the client has exhausted all options to come to the crux of an issue. And if as coaches, we are able to get to the crux, then the chances of working at a deeper level is higher than, let's say, at a level of action or activity or information. Does that make sense, Sandeep?
I think there's an inherent assumption made, Anita, here that a SMART goal necessarily means an action. A SMART goal doesn't necessarily mean an action.
Possible. And thank you for that counter challenge. And that's why this model is so powerful, because we don't know. And that's exactly what we clarify with the client. So for them, yes, This is your objective. This is your further goal. Any other way you want to look at your outcome? Any other way? Are you sure? Any other way? And then you ask them, so now that you have shared A, B, C, D, E, which do you think will take you closest to dealing with procrastination? Or which do you think will take you closest to losing weight or overcoming self-doubt? So what happens is, like you rightly said, you let them only come up with everything, you clarify things with them only, and then you help them pick up their own, crux further go. Does that make sense? Any thoughts, any of you? Yeah. So sure. Thank you. Now, another thing which I think Nancy deals with a little more in detail in the second part is, what are the steps to build an incisive question? Now, guys, I'll be very honest. Both the books are literally like textbooks. Okay, so it's a little technical. And so I'm still in the process of absorbing, understanding, comprehending myself. So, and I would encourage you to just do the same. But like I told you in the first slide itself, when we talk about incisive question, it's a process. So incisive question, the way we understand question, open-ended, closed-ended, leading, probing, it's not as straightforward as that. So incisive question is actually an outcome. It is not a start. It is the end. Now, how do we arrive at the end? These are the steps that Nancy talks about, where the steps are assumption question, key assumption question, transition question, invitation question, liberating alternative question, and incisive question. Okay. Kindly just, know the names. You can always take a, screenshot or a picture if you wish to. But again, I thought I'll take an example. I hope it helps you. Please feel free to challenge the perspective. So the first is, again, the example I've taken is self-doubt, because many times I have dealt with people who come to me with the issue of self-doubt. I'll be more than happy to take any example that you have in mind as well. So if there is self-doubt, assumption, by the way, Mahi, your hand is still up. Did I miss out on you wanting to say something, or it's just up? Okay, she'll respond when she can. So yeah, the first step, the assumption goal with regards to self-doubt. So Nancy says that the question could be something like, what are you assuming about yourself that's creating self-doubt? And you know what? I have literally done this exercise with myself, in certain cases. So let's say even doing this webinar. So obviously that I had my self-doubts. I had in my mind, okay, will I be able to do it? Will I not be able to do it? So what are my assumptions about myself? So my assumption was, the other people who do it, they seem to do such a great job. I have never done this. Never done this with a coaches community. So those are my assumptions. And by the way, so we had planned one webinar, about a year back. And frankly, that did not happen. So I'm like, arey, jinx ho gaya, the first webinar did not happen. What if there are no registrations? What if nobody wants to, listen to me? Assumptions. So the first step, Nancy says, in the way to build incisive question is, what are you assuming about yourself that's creating the self-doubt? And I think Nancy literally, in the movies, like they show, you poke the knife and you literally twist it in the tummy. So in a kind and gentle way, she actually says, get down to it, get down to it with the client and help them really get transformed. So don't ever stop at the first question. What else are you assuming? What else are you assuming? Why is that helpful? So that rather than stopping at an assumption level, you bring the client to a key assumption level, which means what are you most assuming yourself that you have just shared, in what you have just shared, which creating self-doubt? Is it true? What are your reasons? Like, for example, what I was most assuming about myself, and it's still something I'm working on, I'm not good enough. So that's like the key assumption. Now, can you understand how beautiful it is? So, like taking personal example, procrastination to me is actually a perfection issue. Assumption of will people listen to me is actually a key assumption of I'm not good enough for, people, or putting myself out there. Now, can be true, cannot be true. Now, that's where Nancy says, check. Check where are they? Because sometimes the client believes so strongly about what they have in mind that they're not willing to move ahead. So she just says that, okay, if you were to be aware that self-doubt is, avoiding you living to your full potential, what would you do? And you see what the client says. I'd like to purposely repeat that. After the key assumption, Nancy says, purposely do a dipstick if the client is open to a alternate healthy assumption. She calls it liberating alternative assumption. But let's say you want to use simpler words. How can I get the client to move from a unhealthy to healthy? By challenging him. Okay, is it really true? Is it really true? What makes you think that? What are your reasons? What's your evidence? So maybe if Nancy was coaching me, she would ask me things like, how many webinars have you done? How many people in the Abhyudaya community have probably pinged you and said, hey, why are you doing the webinar? I don't think you're going to do well at all. Right? So you nudge the client in a kind and gentle way. But let's say the client is not willing. No, I just don't think I can improve in procrastination. No, I just don't think I'm good enough. Stop that liberating assumption there for the time being. Bring to transition. So which means what? I have to walk with the client some more before I sense readiness for the alternative assumption, liberating assumption. So which is why I say, theek hai. You know what? You're right. That's possible. So what am I doing? I'm temporarily letting the client get away with their unhealthy, assumption. And I still gently challenge them by asking a transition question. Yet, despite that, yes, it could be true. What might you be assuming that's delaying your self-belief? So I slowly change the language to take them from a self-doubt to a self-belief. Are you guys with me so far? Is that making sense? Or it's too technical? Can I see a thumbs up in case you guys are with me? Priya, are you with me or have I lost you?
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
And this is coming from a coaching session I did just yesterday with one of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I followed this. However, at the stage when this transition stage,
Mm-hmm.
I needed to pause and take her permission to share my hypothesis.
Okay.
And because I realized that while I had asked as many times the assumptions and and about from the things that she was sharing, it was pretty clear, but she was not being able to articulate it in a manner which makes it very clear. So I had to, and after going in circles, I felt that maybe I need to pause. I took her permission to share that based on whatever you've shared with me. If with your permission, can I share my hypothesis of what I see happening here? And if you think it is true, it's fine. If it is not, then you can throw it out of the window. And then I articulated. She reflected a little, and then she said, "You know what? This is true." So I just wanted to bring this up here because there are times when something is right under the nose, but in the session, it's while they are just around it, but they're not able to really get to the point of, okay, this is the assumption which is holding me back, and this assumption is not true, and this is where it is coming from. So just wanted to get views from this community. If there could have been an alternate way, because after doing this, I was in self-doubt. That was it my own sense of urgency to move forward that made me do that, or was there sense of judgment that crept in me? Though at the end of it turned out to be true, and then it got the session back on track.
Mhm.
But when I realized there was a lot of rambling, I took to this approach.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if all of you have heard Priya, like Naya Taja session, this is like literally yesterday's session. She made an observation and she wants to know if there was an alternative in which she could have transitioned the conversation.
Yeah, because sometimes just asking what else, is, doesn't take it to the transition level. And I think at that moment I couldn't think of any other incisive question which will make this transition into a liberating alternative.
But in which case, Priya, I'm tempted to ask that if what else did not work, what else could you have explored to ask a question in a different way?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And at that moment, I couldn't think of any.
Sure. I mean, I'm just messing with you, but a beautiful question. So, yeah, all yours, guys. Mahi, Sandeep, Preeti. Let's help out Priya here.
So, Priya, what I certainly believe is that uh, basis your intuition, you did came up with that hypothesis, and it turned out to be true in the case with the client. However, my belief is that if that realization is to the client via questioning, and of course, what else may not be the best way. At this moment, I don't have a. I mean, given there is no much context, what questions could be framed is difficult to come up here. But definitely, it will be more powerful when the client comes to a realization of their own assumptions instead of we making the hypothesis. Uh, that's my view.
Okay, so one vote in terms of keep the questioning going before getting tempted by sharing an observation. What about others? Preeti, Mahi, any thoughts?
So, Anita, observations, yes, definitely. When you follow your intuition, you share the observation. But I mean, I'm trying to just make a differentiation between a hypothesis and an observation.
Sure. So firstly, I think Priya will be the best person to answer whether, what is for her, what was hypothesis, observation, or what she noticed that she felt like sharing to the client. But Priya, with regards to the circumstance itself, is it okay I share my view on this?
Yes, please.
So I feel like, of course, sharing an observation or something that you have noticed or a pattern is something we all, I think, resort to at some juncture. My only submission, and I'm inclined to feel Nancy will agree, that you do it after exhausting all possible options. Now here, more time to think may not be the answer. However, you do chemistry sessions, right? If you have got a better sense of the client's worldview, like the client being into movies, the client being into sports, the client being into art. So rather than ask a coaching question, can I still find out what's in the client's mind by using the analogy of their world? So if the client were to love, let us say, music, and I would probably say, okay, I see that there seems to be something on your mind. You seem to love Mohammad Rafi so much. Any song of Mohammad Rafi that will convey what you have in mind? Or, you love Virat Kohli. And so if you were Virat Kohli, or if let's say if Virat Kohli were to have this problem, what would he have to say about it? Now imagine you're Virat Kohli. So maybe I would try, creative coaching a little bit to pursue a different line of questioning when what else does not seem to work. How does that sound to you?
Interesting.
So reflect on it. Sometimes it's worked very powerfully. There was a recent client who was into deep sea diving. And like you faced, I completely was like, literally, I wanted to cry literally in the session because I was like, what else can I ask? And because I was going to do this webinar and, more time to think, the hangover was so strong. I was like not able to move. And then I suddenly realized that this guy loves deep sea diving. And so then I asked him a question that, hey, okay, you know what? Imagine you are 30 meters below sea level. And this is what is the landscape there. And you see this what do you see? I asked the client, what do you see? The client gave me some information about some fish and, some stingray and all that, some colorful thing, some corals. And so then I said, okay, now if let's say this coral is looking at your issue, and firstly the session energy changed. But firstly, she started laughing. She's like, "Oh my God!" I mean, I'm like, able to, like they show in the cartoons. I'm able to imagine that fish speaking. And then she said, "Firstly, I think the fish will say, I don't have those problems in life." So there was this energy shift, and in fact, that is the ease that Nancy Klein talks about. How can you make the environment easy for the client so that they come out of their own head? So while we encourage thinking, it is not about being in the head while you're thinking, right? And see if we can use their worldview in their favor. So that's what is coming up to me as of now. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, very, very interesting perspective here. Thank you.
Most welcome. So yeah, so carrying forward, if transition doesn't work sometimes because a client believes, then you try alternate methods, and then you move on to say an invitation question where it is not true. That means the client has realized that, I mean, it's not like I doubt myself everywhere. Just because I've not done a coach's webinar does not mean I've not done any webinar, right? So then you immediately pounce, you literally pounce with the invitation question. So given that the assumption that you don't lack self-doubt in other areas, so you can believe in yourself in many areas, what would you credibly assume so that you remove the self-doubt? Now, these questions need a little bit of practice. They will sound different in Hindi, they will sound different in different languages, and we can all come up with our own question. And that's where the next piece that I'm going to talk about, which is the expert piece. Nancy happily says, you're the expert, you're the boss, please do whatever you want with it. But let's say, like, if I take my personal example ahead, then what can I credibly assume? Remember, the words are so beautiful. Why credibly? Because the client has to believe it. So it's not about him saying, yeah, I think I can be like He-Man. No, he may not believe that he can be He-Man, So what can I credibly assume? Okay, I have not done for coaches, but it's okay. What's the harm in trying? So that's a credible assumption. That is something I can live with. I can't say, yeah, daily I'll do webinars. No, I'm not believing that at all. Today when I came onto the webinar, my belief was not that just because I do a webinar daily, I can do this well. So that liberating alternative would come later only. Yes, Preeti, I see you. So invitation question. And then you move to the liberating alternative if the conversation flows. That, if you don't entirely lack self-belief, or that you don't totally have self-doubt, what would be true for you? Can I try once? What is the worst that can happen? Abhyudaya will not give me an opportunity again. Right? So, and you literally get the client to the point key. So the same thing that Priya was talking about, sometimes it's right under the nose. You're not going to lose your life, right? So so the incisive question finally, and Priya, Apriti, you could share now. So the incisive question thereby comes is that, so if you knew that removing self-doubt would help you live your best life, what would change? So the question I ask myself is, if I know that removing the self-doubt will help me overcome the limiting barrier that I can't do webinar for coaches, what would change? So what changed for me is, dekh lete hain. Can I just do this one attempt? So that's the building the incisive question piece. It's a huge piece in part 2, but this was just a thing. Yes, Preeti.
It's just that I couldn't hold my urge to share what you are sharing, what Priya asked, and the analogies you are talking about. Sometimes using analogies with these assumptions and all becomes very easy. When I'm asking someone that what are you assuming about yourselves, maybe the client outside this coach world doesn't understand these questions, right? When we're asking them what else, they don't understand. Because the coaches understand these languages, so we have to change as per their situation. So a client of mine was facing lots of issue in relationships in the office with his colleagues and with the bosses and everywhere, but he was not able to answer these questions to me. But he shared his interest about that how he is a Man City fan and how he follows the football and everything. And I just asked him that how do you see yourself in your football team? Where do you see yourself? And he said, I was always the main player, but nowadays I'm sitting outside the bench. What do you want to be? I want to be the captain of this. What does it require? And the coaching session just changed. After every 2, 3 sessions, I used to ask him about his position in that team, what requires, how is he seeing. And you will not believe the transition happened towards the end. He said, I'm still on the bench, but I'm very comfortable being in the bench because I know that I am that kind of player who comes the last 10 minutes and changes the whole scene. And my team trusts that I am that player. My team has developed that trust in me with all the work we have done together. So sometimes this language creates, of course, it shifts the energy of our coaching sessions,
Yes.
creates a rapport, builds a trust, and then ease in talking. So most of the time, I try to find their interests because that makes my life easy as a coach. Because I am now jumping into their world and asking the question in their language. And that's my favorite way of going. Because the core coaching questions that sometimes bounce back. As a mathematician, I'll say that goes perpendicularly up. They're like, what is she asking about? I'm seeing the shift. What shift she's talking about, right? So all these assumptions, transition, invitations, this process is there, but then we have to play, being creative there. The process will be the same. This transition, the invitation, the liberation, all the things will be the same, but we are understanding that. We have to be creative and playful. So thank you for bringing your this self-doubt and procrastination. It's so relatable, Anita. I'm also thinking that why did I say no to many a times, many, many different things because of self-doubt, but I didn't ask questions to myself the way you asked, but I'll definitely do that. So thanks.
Thank you. And Preeti, thank you, in fact, for making my job easier, because all these questions that we are talking about, remember, they can be asked with the analogy only. So these words are just indicative. These words are not really for us to mug and ask the client. So thank you. Of course, and Priya definitely looks like she's sold on trying this out. So yes, right from your assumption to your incisive, whatever is the client's worldview, you see how to marry the two and coaching sessions could flow, right? So that brings me to the last piece of the session where I think Nancy talks about, if I have to say it in Hindi, literally Nancy takes about 12 pages to tell Bhagwan ke liye, let them be the expert. Literally that's what Nancy Klein tries to say in about 12 pages. And, that got me curious. And although that is not there in the book, I was looking at who's an expert, or what is expertise. So wherever there is a mix of passion, innovation, and mastery, okay, that is where expertise comes in. So if you're an expert at something, so you're very passionate about it, you're very innovative in that, and you are a master in that. And that why this was very powerful to me was, I'm like, how the heck was I so arrogant that I thought I could be the expert in a coaching conversation? Because will I ever be as passionate about a client's goal more than the client? Will I ever want to be the master of achieving whatever the client wants more than the client? Or will I ever be more committed to innovatively figuring out something as a client more than the client? The answer is clearly no. But it's an assumption I am making that I know better. So I am zabardasti putting myself in the seat of the expert, which I have come to believe is, borderline, I don't know if I should say this, but borderline either superiority complex or borderline ego or borderline, believing that I know better. Oh, you're coming to me with a heartbreak. I have had 3 heartbreaks. So I'll tell you. You're coming to me with, managing a team well. Well, I have done enough mess ups and I have managed large teams, so I know better. So much of interference because of which, as a coach, I learned the costly lesson that I should just ask the expert. And here the expert is only the client. My only job is to let the client tap into their own passion, their own mastery, their own innovation, not give into early temptations when they try to corner us into giving a solution. Sometimes the clients are very smart. See, thinking is hard work. Thinking is not for the lazy. So many times the client will immediately throw the ball back and want to outsource their thinking. And that's where you hold your own and you say, humor me. If you were to know this, what would you say? If you were to believe this, what would you say? If you were to think like your favorite hero, what would the response be? Only when every option possible is exhausted, and which is why allowing thinking is so much about patience, and it is so much about attention, that I will express my view only and only at the very end. Yes, they will show impatience, but you again get back and say, hey, you know what? I believe you will know what's best for you. And remember, we would have set the coaching relationship accordingly, that you're the expert here, you're the owner here. My job is to just support you. My job is to just facilitate and co-create with you. Is that okay with you? So we would have set that as the initial coaching partnership. And because we've set that coaching partnership, I feel what Nancy wants us to do is exhaust ourselves into converting that into a thinking partnership. Yeah. So expertise, being an expert, the client being an expert, building the incisive question, and a little bit of understanding the further goals is what I felt I wanted to share. Of course, thank you for Preeti to, wait 1 second. Because she helped me point out that I have missed out the encouragement part in the 10, elements of thinking environment. So we'll just go back to that. But otherwise, I think to me, the biggest parting thought that I probably wanted to leave you with is, please don't offend the client. Just be curious about what's your client really thinking. And always give them more time to think. The reason being, picture, baki hai. Like this, the picture is always baki. And if we give the client the more time to think, I feel like as coaches, we will break a lot of barriers. Yeah. So yes, your thoughts, anything, next time is I think just a thank you slide. So yes, please tell me anything you'd like to share, what landed for you, what part, etc., etc. And I'll just yeah, come on. I mean, last mile. You guys have been great so far. I'll just show you this one Chuntu piece. Yeah. So encouragement is moving beyond competition. So when you're encouraging a client, frankly, what it means is that, see, the client, they're convinced at that point, right, that somebody else is better or something else is out there, which is, better than what they are capable of. So encouragement is not about shabashi. It's not about, kar lega. It's not about, because the client is not really necessarily ready to believe that about themselves. So encouragement is not about pep talk. Okay. So encouragement is again about coming up with a question where I say, hey, if you knew this, what would it look like? If you were the best manager in your team, what do you see yourself doing differently? Can you remember an instance when you've done very well as a manager? So the encouragement has to be again something that they are coming to terms with. Yeah. So thanks, Preeti, for pointing that out. So yes, guys, that was from me. Anything you'd like to share? And do read the book.
So thanks, Anita. It was really a very reinforcing session, I'll say, because I'll definitely read the book again. As you said, it's a textbook. You read as much as, and you go deeper and deeper, and every time the layer opens. Secondly, I could see the loopholes in my coaching where I am being impatient, where I'm racing against the time, or unknowingly or unintentionally, my assumptions are coming up. And while even if I am sharing my observations, sometimes it's about my belief system. So while going through these 10 components, it knocks you, hey, be aware, be aware. I felt like that when you were sharing. And so honestly and beautifully, you shared about your self-doubt. These things are like human. We all go through it. So beautiful encouragement. And as a coach, I think the more and more we go through these 10 components, we become better and better. So more of the presence. Somehow, see, it's so beautifully related to the competencies. There is no difference.
Correct.
The idea of competence is what we are doing, and this attention and being present there, ease and everything. So they are all intermingled.
Yes.
It's a good reminder, reinforcement, and I'm certainly going to read it. And many congratulations, you did a good job with the coaches. Do it again. I still remember that you missed that first session and last moment it got
I
cancelled.
remember, yes.
Did
Yeah.
you? Yes.
Thank you.
So, all the very best.
Thank you. Sandeep, Priya, how are we doing?
Thank
Ten
you
check.
very much. Thank you very much. I had read the first book, Time to Think, and which I applied a lot in my coaching sessions. And I
Lovely.
picked up this book, and it was I think a very, very pleasant coincidence that I had picked up reading this book just this week, and I saw the WhatsApp message that there is a book reflection happening for this book. And somehow I felt that I instead of reading in isolation, it will be a good platform to discuss and review the book together. I was hoping I'd complete the book before the session. I wasn't able to, but I think very interesting session, and pretty much covered in a nutshell what the book has in store. It makes me more curious now to go read it further. But thank you to you, thank you to the rest of the participants here. It made the session very engaging.
Thank you so much. Sandeep?
Yeah, so when I read the first book, I think there was a lot of patience that I started practicing in my coaching sessions. And it was a reminder through this session now again to be still more patient in my coaching conversation. Right?
Oh, yes.
That's the biggest takeaway for me, because I mean it's been quite some time earlier that I had read this book. The second book is lying on my shelf. It is I've still not picked it up.
Sure. Then I hope you pick it up. And yeah, we sometimes feel like we should staple our lips, so that we don't open our mouth in front of the client. But yeah, it's a process. And I think all of us are in a beautiful journey. So thank you. Thank you for the space. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your presence. God bless, and I'll see you around.
Yeah, I just want to convey my big thanks to Jaya and Abhyudaya team, because if not they, I would
Yes.
not have read this book ever. I was not knowing
see.
about this book. So sometimes making things compulsory is really good.
Yes.
Otherwise, I would not have read it. So thanks, Jaya, for this.
Yes, of course, a big thanks to
Wonderful.
Abhyudaya and Jaya. That's the umbrella we are, under, and we are able to do all this exploration also. So indeed, thank you. And thank you all, guys. I'll see you around. Okay. Take care. God
Take
bless.
care.
Bye, Priya. Bye, Sandeep. Bye, Preeti.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.